34 on May 23rd, 2018. We'd like to call the Costa DC meeting to order. I'd like to start off in prayer with Director Dindal leading us in prayer this morning.
Would you pray with me? Father, we just thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for the rain last week that you showered about the area, Lord. It's so green and it's so wonderful, and we thank you for that, Lord. Thank you for the city of San Angelo and for the folks that live here. And, Lord, we just pray that we make wise decisions in today's meeting. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Director Dindal. Now moving on to public comment. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, beginning by stating their name and limiting remarks to less than 3 minutes. Board members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The board takes public comment on all regular agenda items during the discussion of those. We are now open for public comment. Hello, Ms. Jamie.
Good morning. Jamie Rainey with Howard College. And I wanted to give you an update. COSA DC helped us start the LVN to RN transition program and the Associate Degree of Nursing program. The associate degree, of course, you can go straight into that to be an RN, or if you had already been an LVN and you were coming back to school, you could go an additional year and be an RN. Your dollars helped make that possible. So our first transition class actually graduated in 2017. There were 24 graduates, and it instantly had an impact on our community. 8 were hired by Shannon, 2 by San Angelo Community Medical Center, 2 at Rivercrest, 1 in Syker County, 1 in Sutton County, 1 at Reagan Elementary School. And then we had home health agencies and nursing homes that also benefited from these students. So you had an impact, not only in San Angelo proper, but in the surrounding counties that also travel here to spend their money here. So it was a huge impact. It got even bigger this year. So we had an additional 21 LVN to RN transition graduates and 24 of our associate degree graduates. And those folks, this is our first class because we're at their second year now. 27 students have already been extended a job offer from Shannon. And it ranges all over the hospital and doctor's offices, from the ER department to labor and delivery, just all different departments. So it's not just a need in one area. We have going to nursing homes again. We have 2 students going to the State Supported Living Center, 5 students to San Angelo Community Medical Center, and the list goes on. So we are ecstatic, and so are our business partners. I asked Pam Bradshaw from Shannon, you know, she's the chief nursing officer, and she also went with us to the Board of Nursing, Texas Board of Nursing, to actually ask for this program to be approved. And she said that she really estimated that by hiring local, they have approximately $2 million in savings over having to pay for short-term travel staff. So your dollars are making a huge difference in so many lives, and all of those payroll dollars are now staying local. And so we appreciate it so much and just wanted you to have an update and say thank you again for your support of our programs.
Thank you. That's great news. We always love to hear updates on how the dollars, made an impact in the community. So thank you for that, Jamie. Still open for public comment. Anyone? All right, there being no additional public comment, we're now closing public comment and moving on to the consent agenda. Consider approving the April 25th, 2018 minutes. Consider approving the necessary corporation disbursements. Consider approving the April 2018 financial statements. Can I get a motion? So moved. Motion by Director Coles.
Second.
Second by Director Barrio. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. Motion carries. Moving on to regular agenda. Update regarding Porch to Plains congressional trip to Washington, D.C. on April 16th through the 20th, presented by Mayor Brenda Gunter and Director John Barrio.
Hi, I'm Brenda Gunter. I'm Mayor of San Angelo. I think one of the most important things we can say today about Ports to Plains is that we used the Washington trip to reorganize the Ports to Plains Board of Directors and the Executive Board. Up until this year, San Angelo did not have a position on the Executive Board. We officially now have a position on the Executive Board, so we have a voice on, and we believe that's an important part. Lubbock, San Angelo, and Amarillo, none of us, although we're the three biggest contributors to the Ports of Plains, had a voice on the executive board. So that has been changed. In addition to that, we've made a decision to change the executive staff. So Michael Reeves is no longer our director. We have hired John Osborne to do that, who heads up Lubbock's executive economic development. And we will not be hiring someone to replace him immediately. Our intent is to do the following, is to look at hiring a consultant or a lobbyist. And we're doing that for the following reasons. The number one thing that we learned when we traveled to Washington, D.C. is that most of the decisions, the funding, the freight mobility plan will be funded by TxDOT. It's not going to come from federal funds. And we say that because today the relationship in terms of how dollars will be funded are the following: 80% local or state, 20% federal. We don't have a plan to get our 80% to match the federal dollars, because the only way we can do that in this part of the world is tolls, and Abbott has said there will be no tolls. In addition to that, we don't believe in West Texas a toll road will work. And so for that reason, we know that we have to campaign and work aggressively with our legislators here in Texas and to make sure that TxDOT makes our I-27 an important route. The other important part to say about this is that we know that if Texas doesn't complete their route, the rest of the I-27 conversation isn't a strong conversation. A month ago, Sonora, who has been an anti-supporter, if you will, in terms of creating a reliever route around Sonora, has finally made a decision to support a feasibility study and get that reliever route. So that will help complete the route to Del Rio. In addition to that, we believe strongly that those people who don't understand what the I-27 conversation is, we need to remind everybody that I-27, whether it becomes a interstate all the way from Laredo to Canadian border, the most important part is we're getting improved roadways. Without this conversation of I-27, we would not have gotten the passing lanes from San Angelo to El Dorado, or El Dorado to Sonora. Since we have added those passing lanes, the fatalities from San Angelo to El Dorado have gone to 0. Up until that point in time, there were 2 to 3 fatalities on an annual basis. So we know the conversation of improved roadways is an important conversation. Whether it all becomes interstate is not important. What's important is that we need good roads out here. And with the strength of the agricultural industry, the ever important oil and gas industry, we need our roadways to be able to carry the freight. We have asked TxDOT to go back and look at creating a feasibility study, which they have not done and not funded up until this point in time. So that's going to become a very key focus and something we're going to push aggressively on in terms of the I-27. We believe strongly that realigning the board of directors and the executive staff will be an important part in terms of getting additional support going forward. We've got to push the state of Texas to make this an important focus, and we need the 3 most important financial contributors to Ports and Plains to have a voice in the project. So I believe we're on a new path, a good path, and a path that will prove very beneficial to the city of San Angelo.
Thank you, Mayor Gunter. Mayor Gunter presented a very detailed and concise picture of the big picture that we're talking about with I-27 particularly impacting San Angelo. I'd like to go back to the actual trip that we took. Lobbying the various officials, senators, congressmen, and the Department of Transportation there in Washington was a new experience for me. It's enlightening to see how that mechanism works. While there's a sense of disappointment that the funding will be 80-20 with the state bearing the burden, there is a prospect of the federal government recognizing I-27 as a key federal program. One point in particular is that I-35 has grown to a point of saturation. They're actually considering a project that's only 33 miles to add lanes to I-35 just to get traffic through Austin. and that's about an $8 billion project. The entire completion of I-27 from Laredo to the top of the Texas Panhandle is less than an $8 billion project. And what we proposed, and quite frankly, Senator Cruz seemed to really embrace this, was that with the continued westward expansion of the United States, if you look at the satellite picture of the United States at night, you can literally see by the night lighting that the United States has grown westward up to the I-35 corridor. Rather than developing an already saturated highway, we're looking now at putting in I-27 from the perspective of a reliever route for I-35. A lot of the inland port traffic coming through Laredo, Texas, could take the westward route on I-27, bringing more economic development to the whole I-27 Ports to Plains corridor. It would still get the traffic up into the United States from our border with Mexico. And quite frankly, Senator Cruz was probably the most enthusiastic in embracing that concept, that this could put the I-27 corridor on a federal priority list that may well flip-flop the funding percentage from the 80% state burden to an 80% federal burden. Many concepts were discussed about how to fund that. Taxes, user fees, that's still up in the air. But it is not supported. It's not supported. But what politician wants to vote for higher taxes or more fees? The reality of it is, it's the more economical route.
But it won't happen.
Yes. So, not in our lifetimes, but we have to plant the seeds in order for the crop to grow. I, for one, certainly support it and endorse it, but there's a big mechanism out there that needs to be pushed off high center in order to make it happen. And we appreciate the support of this board, the city of San Angelo, and all of the economic developers along the route.
One more comment. When we met with Senator Hurd, I think he brought one of the newest ideas to the table, and that was that today Long Beach, California has the highest level of freight coming into Long Beach, to the point that many of the ships stay out there for weeks waiting to unload. And he really sees creating an opportunity to drop some of that freight further south and then take that freight across to Laredo and then up here. And that would be another reliever route to get a lot of the freight out of the boats across the country to Texas. So he's pushing aggressively for that perspective, which would bring more states into focus in terms of additional support for an I-27 route.
Questions from the board?
I have questions.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear that Senator Cruz is very excited about your message. It is a message, though, that's been out there for years. But you know, as our legislative representatives change or other priorities get pushed to them, sometimes they can forget. So I think that the changes that you're talking about show new energy, and that's important. I think that it's also a really great time to start seeing Ports to Plains not in competition with I-27, but the perfect complement to I-27. So I guess
I-35.
well, no, as a reliever route to I-35, but I-27 is not necessarily separate and apart from the Ports to Plains corridor. It's virtually the same area. So if you're learning that Texas is really going to have to be, in a large way, responsible for itself, how are the other states responding to this from the board perspective?
We are doing weekly executive board conference calls, so anyone on that call offers an opinion. So I brought that up as one of the first conference calls. Well, it's great that we're focusing on Texas, but what does that make Nebraska feel like, et cetera, et cetera. And they believe strongly that they have true support in their states. And they also know that if we don't make it happen in Texas, their states don't happen. And so they're very very, very supportive of the focus on Texas. They know that they have to focus on their states and get their senators and congressmen supporting their states. But the good thing is that everybody came together on this focus, and nobody feels like we're shorting them in this conversation. So I feel really positive about the support, and there isn't a negative from any state right now in terms of this conversation.
Also, how do the Canadians as well as the Mexicans that have been sort of partners in this, how are they being represented?
One of our big focuses going forward is to make sure that more people buy into it financially. And that means that Laredo, which certainly has a great opportunity to benefit from this, has not signed on and been a member of Ports to Plains. And once again, we believe strongly that we, an executive board, will start visiting some of these cities and working with them, because before it really was left in Michael Reeves' hands. And, you know, sometimes you, as a salesman, as you know, you got to ask for the check. We need to be asking for some checks from some of these cities. So with that said, we will be visiting with Laredo to get them in partnership with us. And there's some other cities that we believe strongly have great benefit from this that have not been financial partners in the Ports to Plains, but simply potential beneficiaries from it. So we're going to take a more aggressive stand in terms of recruiting additional people to become a part of the Ports to Plains concept.
So do you see any states in Mexico participating? Because that's where the ports are.
Well,
the ports are on the Mexican Pacific coast. It's not Long Beach.
it's not right now, but at the same point in time, we'll be meeting in Del Rio for our annual conference this year, and we will be having some more conversations with people, because we don't believe there's been enough new buy-in, and we need more financial support. We need more buy-in. And, you know, Denver, Colorado is another one who has potential to benefit in a major way, but because they're Denver, Colorado, feel like they don't have to participate. They're just Denver, Colorado. So there are many, many conversations that we need to have with people for buy-in.
I'd start with Longmont if you're in Colorado, but I think that
We agree.
Bruce still has some friends there, I'm sure. But I think that I don't think there's been anywhere near as much attention placed on the Mexican states as there was the Canadian provinces, and I think that's a huge opportunity missed.
I think we will be focusing a lot more on Mexico than Canada going forward.
It's good to hear.
Absolutely. Other questions or comments?
Other questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item B, consider approving the fiscal year 2018-2019 budget presented by Tina Diersky, Director of Finance.
Morning, Board. Tina Diersky, Director of Finance. I'm here to present the proposed budget for the 2018-19 fiscal year. You have seen this already. There are not many changes on this particular slide presentation, but I did want to make you aware of a couple of things. I'm going to ask that you approve of this budget in substantially the presented form. We will make some changes going forward as the city's budget changes for sales tax revenue. We will correlate your sales tax revenue budget with that, as well as for the staff services contract. Once that is approved, and that should come to the board for approval, so you will know of any of those changes that are made as they are made. So again, sales tax revenue, we're budgeting flat for now. We do expect to increase that a bit, maybe 3 to 5%, depending on where we end up with sales tax revenue for the current year. Interest on investments, we're increasing to $30,000 for next year. Administrative, staff services, affordable housing, and West Texas Water Partnership, there are no changes. There is a slight increase for debt service, and of course, that's just the amount needed to service your debt as far as principal and interest payments next year. Sports facility maintenance goes away next year, and you end up with a remaining $187,000 in future projects, and of course, that money is available for other needs that may come up throughout the year. So that's it for the ballot side. The proposed budget for economic development, budgeting again flat for sales tax revenue at $2.38 million. Your lease income has decreased slightly for next year. We talked about not budgeting for a gain on sale of fixed assets and just budgeting for that revenue and expense as we sell any properties. And then, of course, interest on investments. Again, we're going to increase that next year based on what we're seeing already this year for the trends in investment income. Admin services, this is where we did make a slight change on this presentation from the last, and the only change we made was to decrease the travel budget by $5,000, and that was just in line with trends that we're seeing in this current fiscal year. Slight changes to partner affiliations, industrial park, and legal services. We decided not to budget for legal services since we've not really used that line this year, and to budget for that as it comes needed. And then, of course, no changes with the chamber contract. No changes for BREP. Marketing, we're going to decrease again in line with what we've seen this year as trend. BRC, very slight change there. CVCED, we've been able to gain some efficiencies by taking that over in our building, and so we have some decreases with that. And then, of course, again, future projects. That's the amount available for other projects or needs as they come available next year. And that will be it for my presentation. Unless you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Few slides back,
Yes.
big jump on interest on investments.
Yes. So through this, through the end of March of fiscal year, the current fiscal year 2018, we've already seen $50,000 in interest income. And so that's just projected to double for next year. We actually expect a bit more than that, but we're being conservative on what we are going to budget.
Fantastic.
Any other questions from the board?
Any other questions?
Middle.
This is
I'll
a
make the
vote.
motion that
Okay.
I'll make the motion that we approve this 2018-2019 budget.
Okay, second by,
Pardon me. Do we need the caveat that we will make changes to correlate with the city's sale tax budget and staff services contract? I don't know if we need that in the motion, but
Yes, I'll include that caveat in my
Okay.
motion.
thank you.
Included in the second.
all right. So we have a motion by Director Barrio, a second by Director Grindstaff. All those in favor?
Aye.
None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Tina.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item C, public hearing regarding the use of sales and use tax funds in an amount not to exceed $7,650 for a memorandum of understanding, MOU, with Angelo State University to enable the assignment of up to 2 AmeriCorps Vista members to perform services to help with the WRC program, as well as providing organizational support to COSA DC staff, presented by Shannon Scott, Economic Development Specialist.
Good morning, Board.
Morning.
Just a quick reminder, this is, public hearing is required for each project that we undertake for Section 505-159 of the Local Government Code. This is in regards to an MOU that was approved at last month's board meeting and then subsequently approved by City Council on May 15th. And again, is in regards to the Work Ready Community Vista as well as a COSA DC Vista. Total cost is a little over $7,600. We're anticipating a start date around July of 18 of this year for each of these vistas.
All right. We are now open for,
Yes, we need to open the
we're
public hearing.
open for public comment at this time. There being no public comment, we're now closing public comment on this item. Moving on to item D, presentation of the Chamber of Commerce first quarter report, January through March 2018, presented by Michael Looney, Vice President of Economic Development.
Good morning, Costa DC Board. Michael Looney, VP of Economic Development with the San Angelo Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having us this morning.
Morning.
This is a report on the activity of the first quarter of 2018. To recap, for those who don't know, the Chamber of Commerce Economic Development Division partners with and is contracted by COSA DC to conduct marketing activities to recruit employers, attract new jobs, and increase capital investment in the San Angelo area. A brief overview of objectives is to target industries that are compatible with San Angelo's proximity to these customers and these companies' markets, available skilled workforce, availability of research and development support, availability of education and training needs for their employees, logistics, product transportation, and existing industry sectors complementary to their particular industries. And we also foster economic growth through doing prep work. We utilize the San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance as a platform for both business retention and expansion, recruitment of new companies, and we are also an invaluable resource to the prospect. Speaking of being an invaluable resource to the prospect, we're going to go over some recruitment progress. U.S. Well Services, this was the company that we recruited in the first quarter of 2018. It's an oil field services company based in Houston. They have most of their operations done up in the Marcellus Play and the Utica Play, which is up in the northeast part of the United States. They wanted to get into the Permian market and into the Permian Basin. We began working with them in November of last year. They revealed to us that they were going to bring most of their technicians and many of them with their families to San Angelo. That was the plan. They ended up leasing 6720 Arden Road, which is the former Select Energy facility, which had sat vacant for 2 years. Just sat vacant doing nothing. And it's a good facility built in 2014. And they inhabited it. They began operations around February or March. And they've hired 5 local employees for office functions and some technicians. They're going to expand that as they go, but right now they're at 40 employees that they transferred down, so an extra 5 that they hired locally. And we did a really good job on that project. We felt good about it. We received a commendation letter from the company, which is included in the SARMA packet that you have in front of you. I'm not expecting you to read it right now, and I'm not going to read it to you now, but it was very reaffirming for our department to see that we are being recognized for our efforts. We also worked on Project Globe. Project Globe is a company that is located on the eastern seaboard. The projected economic impact was 20 to 25 jobs. They would be targeting 2 San Angelo facilities, direct annual salaries projected at just under $900,000 a year. Direct economic annual impact, remember this isn't a 10-year horizon, this is just an annualized impact outlook, and that's $5 million direct annual impact per year. And the net tax benefit to San Angelo over a 10-year period is $1,600,000. I'll add an update that SMC Global actually closed last week. And so I know I'm kind of skipping ahead going forward in time because this is a look back at the last quarter. But you'll also see the press release in your packet that I gave you, and that is actually going out this morning. In other recruitment progress, Project PAC is a large metal products fabrication company that is seeking land for a build-to-suit of a 100,000 square foot facility. They would be hiring approximately 100 employees locally. They would probably have to import some people in that have certain managerial and technical skills that they need. And they have toured San Angelo. Project Globe, as I just said, that is a company that ended up, as I can say now, taking 2 facilities. It started off with them looking for 1 facility for distribution of their chemicals, and they do downhole biocides and anti-friction and anti-corrosion and anti-scaling chemicals, which they actually make on site. And they ended up taking 2 facilities, 1 for distribution and 1 for mixing and for the processing of the chemicals. In subsequent conversations the past couple of weeks, they've decided that they're probably going to expand one of their 2 locations that they already have. And then Project Stocks is a steel automotive parts manufacturer that's got an office in Juarez City, Mexico, and 1 in El Paso. They have toured San Angelo twice, and we are in contact with the owner of that company on trying to establish a facility here in San Angelo, a manufacturing facility. Project Canada and Project DeLong are both energy companies that are seeking locations in San Angelo. We've had several meetings with the mayor, with her office, and with members of COSA DC staff and other interested parties, including the county commissioners for the different areas that these two companies are looking for properties in. Project Home Care is a project that that we reported on last quarter, and this is a project that is not one that is NAICS code compliant for incentives eligibility, but we think it's really worth reporting as an economic development project that we're working on, in that it is a skilled nursing facility that the county commissioners and the city council gave letters of support to in November of last year. And what that did is, with those two letters of support from such esteemed organizations, it gives the state the confidence to award the contract, or the ability to go forward, the license for this developer to secure land and build and operate a skilled nursing facility in San Angelo. Virtually assured it through DADS, and that's Department of Aging and Disability Services. That happened. Last week we were actually notified that they did get approval, and they are going to seek land starting in June. That would be a $10 million skilled nursing facility, and really importantly, kind of dovetailing with what Jamie Rainey spoke of, they did meet in November with Howard College, with Ms. Strubenstein, who is the head of the nursing LVN to RN program at Howard College out at the St. John's campus. And they're going to be working with her department on not just hiring nurses to work at the facility, of which they'd need 90 employees, so a pretty good stable of people, but they would also consider tuition reimbursement, so that the students there, if they agreed to work for this skilled nursing facility, could receive some or all of their tuition paid. And they spoke for about an hour about this. I just stood back and listened to it because I was kind of unfamiliar with how a program like that works. And they said, absolutely, we've done this in our other skilled nursing facilities around the country. It's very successful, and it helps to organically stimulate people who are nurse students in your region into coming to work for us. And they find that that's a really successful formula. Project Long Run, this is a Houston-based energy service company. They came up in the first quarter to come and visit San Angelo and met with me and with the mayor. Also met with several members of the San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance, and tell you about that and speak to the public about what the SARMA is, for those who don't know. But this was a potential recruitment project that was delivered because of a relationship with a San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance member. It's a steel fabricator here in town. Project Roll is another direct lead that we got. It's a Chicago-based coiled steel company that did tour San Angelo, and we met with the mayor and with Elizabeth Grindstaff with Texas Pacifico, as well as several others. And what's nice about this, what we're really encouraged about this, and why we're really excited about the SARMA program, is that what we've done is we've basically built an army of now 110 manufacturers, fabricators, and energy service companies throughout the region. And through these trust relationships that we've built with these companies and fostered that ability to have open conversations about what they need, what their objectives are, what their plans are, and how they can help positively impact San Angelo, it's delivered to us relationships with companies around the country that would be really almost impossible to find just on our own. And so by encouraging this dialogue, they're coming to us, helping us achieve a really powerful economic clustering strategy, where they're telling us, yes, Project Long Run, Project Roll, we've dealt with these companies for years. It would be great to have them in the Concho Valley as opposed to in Pennsylvania or up in Chicago or down in Houston. The San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance, as of the last report, was at 82 member companies. We're now at 110 as of the last quarter. We did launch the SARMA website, www.sarma.us. We conduct regular site visits each week to the different members, of which there's 110, and that list is continuing to grow. It is also, again, producing excellent leads with companies that are very compatible with our workforce, with our infrastructure, with our transportation capabilities. And that really is helping, I think, encourage traction. So it's not just that we want to come and say, yeah, we've talked to 500 companies. That may sound really lofty, but if we don't land any of them, it doesn't do us any good as a community. We want to land these companies. We want to bring them into our community, and we want to integrate them, and we want them here for the long haul. And that's one of the things that we really impress upon these companies when we meet with them. We're in here to build long-term relationships that'll last for decades with these companies. And this also encourages business-to-business collaboration. So when we have our SARMA meetings, which we have each month at the Chamber of Commerce Riverview Room, and then our quarterly socials, which are really, really popular, we find that there is a huge amount of intercompany collaboration, and a lot of times it's sparked by these meetings, by bringing these companies together that may have known of each other for years, but they never really got together and spent time understanding how they could actually work together. We're also doing a manufacturer survey, and that is going to go out in this quarter, where we're going to more formally ask our manufacturers, energy service companies, what are some of the top 4 items in the community that they need, whether it's infrastructure, roads, permit help, employee training. We think it's probably going to be those things that I just mentioned, but it's good to hear from them. And then once we get those formal answers back, and we've actually done quite a bit of this informally at our monthly meetings and our socials. And this has helped inform the Chamber and COSA DC and the other economic development partners as to what are the things that we as economic development leaders what should we be looking at and what should we be doing. And I think we're doing a lot of those things, and that comes down to workforce training, workforce recruitment. So instead of necessarily just going after companies, we're actually now the Chamber's set up a program where we're actually going to job fairs trying to help local manufacturers encourage people to locate here. And again, it fosters excellent business-to-business collaboration. In January, the SARMA won the Spirit of San Angelo Award for Innovation. And you can see us there with the Technical Advisory Committee of the SARMA, comprised of members of Ethicon, Pitts Fabrication, Industrial Hydraulics Company. There were several others that were present. And then on the other side, you can see that we hosted in January our first SARMA social. And each social is held at a different plant or factory or yard. The first one we hosted was at West Texas Industrial Engines. And then the second one that we hosted, which I'll report on next time about this quarter, was held at Angelo State University College of Engineering. And in the first quarter, the SARMA members began to directly work with Concho Valley Workforce for training and on the ACT program. So we're really encouraging our SARMA members to work very closely with the other economic development partners. Continuing on, the SARMA project conducted 4 technical advisory committee meetings so far, and that was in the first quarter. And we did do our formal launch of our social at West Texas Industrial Engines. We've produced the first of 4 industry and San Angelo videos, and these are open source videos that can be used by any of our economic development partners, or anybody for that matter, any company here in the region. And each video highlights, it's a 3-minute video that highlights the prowess of our industry. And so, Anthony, thank you, sir, for hearing my cue, and he's going to play that video for us right now.
Our primary focus is to haul dry bulk commodities, which is frac sand, from the shipper out to the oil sites towards Midland. We're up to 98 drivers right now, and we are looking to expand up towards 120. We are kind of a family-oriented, family mindset business here, so we want that person and employee to fit our mold.
C&J is a top-tier well completions, construction, and well services company. And our goal actually is just to make sure that we deliver the best service possible to each and every one of our clients throughout the whole, all the basins of North America. We have looked all over the place for the perfect ingredient between quality of staff, quality of resources, location, and not to mention the fact that San Angelo is geared toward a certified workforce. That is prime conditions for us to do business here and operate within the Permian Basin.
What we do is we'll take a customer's engine that's reached its economic life, it's used up, and so the benefit for the customer is we'll take that engine, rebuild it, sandblast it to get all the paint, residue off of it, we'll bring it in our shop. We then build that engine back, and when the customer receives that engine, it looks like a brand new one, and it basically is brand new.
What we do is we manufacture oil field storage tanks, production equipment for separation of the oil, gas, and water for the oil field industry. Being, one of the original members of the SARMA organization, San Angelo Regional Manufacturers Alliance, I think things are great. They have already helped me, the city has. They've reached out to some of my potential customers that could change my business dramatically.
San Angelo tends to be a little more slower paced than, like, say, your Midland, Odessa area where everything is crazy and turning and coming and going. So from our dynamics of our personality, how we are as a company and our fit and our model, San Angelo is just a great fit for that aspect, especially the employees that we've been able to drive through the communities around here. They're at our pace. Another aspect of us being in San Angelo is that our guys are usually routinely home daily unless something crazy at the frac happens where they have to shut down the frac job or something of that nature. Our drivers are usually able to get home the same day. So it makes it nice because it molds towards that family time and being back home with the kids and the wife and all that kind of stuff. You get a little more routine home life.
We have so much support from the community, from the chamber, not to mention any of the other support facilities of the Cho Valley. They're all at our disposal. They're all happy and accepting that we're here, and we feel the same. It's a great symbiotic relationship.
So the benefit of being on the big play like in the Permian Basin is the fact that we're just not in the middle of the hype and having to deal with everything that goes with that. Elevated hotel cost, elevated housing, elevated restaurants. We still have our hometown feel and our home people we deal with instead of everything being so transient and dealing with people that are not locals. I find that a big benefit.
There's other people in this industry that are shipping from East Texas, from Oklahoma, from South Texas, Seguin, and they're hauling to the West Texas. I'm close, but not too close. I can still service them within an hour or two, just like Odessa and Midland can. I have less headache. I have a good employee pool, and the quality of life is just so much better in my opinion.
Well done.
Thank you very much. That is going to conclude the first quarter 2018 Economic Development Report from the Chamber of Commerce. If there's any questions or thoughts, I'm happy to talk about them. I'm never at a shortage for words.
Looks like you're off to a good start.
That's not
for
funny.
sure. Any questions from the board for Mr. Looney?
Michael, I would say in the 13 years I've been in San Angelo, this is the most exciting time for economic development, and a lot of that is because of you. This is great. Yeah. I think, before we'd kind of waited for people to come to us, and I'm excited to see what you're going to do beyond just the SARMA with the other sectors. I know the mayor's interested in agriculture, and I think this is the prototype that needs to be used for the different industry sectors, and I think it's going to be as successful as this has been. It's great.
Thank you very much for those words, and I will follow up by saying that even though this is technically a last quarter report, to your point, we are actually in the process of finalizing a database for a SARMA that will be agriculture based, where right now the working title is Pharma, but we can't come up with an acronym that works for pharma. So we're going to be hosting a competition to see who can make pharma mean something that really is catchy. But that is also something, Ms. Grindstaff, that we are working on, because that is a multi-billion-dollar industry in this region of Texas, and it needs the attention that the manufacturers, fabricators, and energy service companies have needed for many years from us. And we are very proud and very grateful for the financial support that COSA DC provides the Chamber that allows us to go forward as an advanced team and attack these problems and create success.
Well,
So
and if-
thank you very much.
Right, and if the community wants to see a lower tax rate, it's going to be done by more people bearing the burden of that, and particularly the growth of industry. So in my view, this is the way to help everyone in the community. So.
It's proven to be very well received by the member companies, and it continues each month to become more popular. It's one of the, we have a lot of support from our members, and in fact they've taken leadership roles where the member companies are really driving our decisions and our planning, which is really what a volunteer organization should do instead of being staff-driven. So anyway, thank you very much for your support, and you will see great things happening the rest of this year. We have a lot more that we are going to report on next quarter, but because this is a first quarter report, I can't tell you about it.
Very good.
Save something.
Yeah, I'll save a few things. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, moving on to agenda item E, consider a resolution authorizing the use of sales and use of tax proceeds for economic development promotional purposes pursuant to Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 505, for designing and executing an advertising campaign promoting the Business Retention and Expansion Program, and authorizing the board president to negotiate and execute a request for such services under the advertising agency agreement by and between the City of San Angelo and McLaughlin Advertising not to exceed $30,000, presented by Robert Schneeman, Business Retention and Expansion Coordinator.
Good morning. I'm going to give you just a little bit of a introduction, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephen McLaughlin to explain the process. But the board may recall that at the last meeting we had some discussion about the need for additional advertising for the BREP program. So staff sort of, decided to run with that. In addition, I had a call from Anthony Wilson of our public information office. He had seen one of our billboards and thought that it could maybe use a little spiffing up, and suggested that we talk to Stephen about doing something there. And that sort of then progressed into when staff got Stephen in the office. What can we do as an overall ad campaign, not just billboards, but maybe a media sort of campaign, which we had tried a couple of years ago, and I feel like maybe we just didn't pursue it long enough. We've got some other things that are going on I wanted to cover briefly before I turn it over to Stephen. One is Michael Looney and I have been talking about getting something in front of the SARMA folks to, get them familiar with the BREP program. We hadn't wanted to do that so far because Michael still had that program sort of in the development stage. Now I think it's the time we can get in front of them and explain our programs, what's available to them, and sort of get the word out. The other thing is, I believe it was 2 meetings ago, Bruce Partain from the Chamber gave me a suggestion I thought was great, and he's suggesting a sort of a BREP mass push on cold calling, where maybe we get some appointments set up and have not just maybe myself and Michael involved, or our staff involved, but maybe get some of the chamber members involved as well, and go out and talk to some of the companies, and sort of a Brett Blitz, if you will. So we're going to look at how that might come together as well. At this point, I'll turn it over to Stephen. I think he's got some real good ideas here. We've kind of done some brainstorming, and I think he's got some real good ideas on the approach to advertising. So, Stephen.
Good morning, Board. And I wasn't really clear on how we wanted to go about this. So just briefly, for board members that weren't here last time I was here, I'll tell you my relationship with Costa DC goes back a long way because I was born and raised here, and my agency is about 20 years old. We did the campaign when the half-cent sales tax was initially passed, and then we were also retained to do the split campaigns when the sunset needed to be lifted on the half-cent sales tax in order to enter into the agreements on the Hickory Aquifer. And I think that's key because at that time, my suggestion to get that to pass included suggesting that there was a separate campaign that strictly told the voters what had been done with their half-cent sales tax money and what things had been achieved by then and where the money was going, because unfortunately, bad news or failures will get to the public on their own, but successful things and positive things that are being done with tax dollars don't seem to get as much attention. And so if you have a frustrated taxpayer base, there's part of the reason why. And that was very successful, and we lifted the sunset on that. At one point, for about a year, we did a campaign for BREP. It ended about a year and a half ago, I suppose, maybe two. It was a year-long project. The first half of the year was strictly online, and a lot of that was information gathering about the online habits of the type of businesses and business owners, manufacturing sector, et cetera, that were in the Nexus codes. It also involved some efforts to promote business-to-business purchasing of wholesale materials being manufactured here by retailers in the area. So it's part of that. And then the second half, we did a mass media campaign. We continued with online, but it had television and radio and newsprint, et cetera. And at the end of that 6 months, the board president at that time, which included Mr. Berriew, they were overwhelmingly positive about the difference in public response and public awareness they had of the program at the end of that time. So I was called again very recently. My understanding is that now we're at the end of a period that there's not been a whole lot done to let people know that BREP is here. I think in the short time we had before, we did not get the message out in such a way that it's just become common knowledge and everybody knows it. It takes a little longer than that, a little more repetition. And so that's where we are. After my meeting with city staff, I came up with a basic proposal of how to go about this based on the numbers I was given and the timeline that they wanted to use. And I think that's in your packets.
There's slides there, too.
Okay. Yeah, but I don't know if you want to do the slides, I suppose we can, or do I just hit an arrow button? You might have given me some slide training before. Okay, what I identified as the objectives, obviously, was we want to grow and retain jobs. We want to make multiple educational impressions on identified eligible local businesses and encourage BREP applications. You know, if the goal is we want to utilize these half-cent sales tax dollars to help keep our birds in the hand, so to speak, to help our local businesses to grow and thrive and to grow jobs here, we can't do that if the people who need the help don't know the help's available. So that's the bottom line of why to do this. And I also, because this is my personal thing, I think it's very important that every step we take doing this is also making taxpayers aware of positive efforts to utilize their tax dollars to help business we already have. I think that if you pay attention to local elections, it's easy to see that there's a frustration among our local population with elected officials and taxation and finances therein. So to tell them that that there is a good project to help local businesses do better, rather than only, which is not a bad thing, but rather than only recruiting businesses from outside, I think is important. And fortunately, those two things go hand in hand. As far as the media division, you'll see that it contains a broad mix of media. It does include heavily online, and it also includes billboards, continuing the billboard campaign, and with deference to, I thank you for having him call me Mr. Wilson. We will make the billboard cohesive with the other advertising messages so that it is an activator and a reminder of things that they've heard. Text display video ads delivered online, cable television, ads on the buses, which the COG is currently offering, just a mix of media things, both with and without voices, just so that you can't miss the message, that it's everywhere, and that we do our best to retain the investment from before and remind people that it's there and make it part of the common knowledge. And really, I think I probably should let you ask me questions, or I'm not sure what you want to know from me. So,
Mr. Chairman, Mr. McLaughlin's organization is under contract with the city. We believe we're allowed to contract with him since he has an existing relationship with the city. We believe this presentation satisfies the consensus opinion that the board gave us to reactivate that marketing campaign. We believe the 6-month term is a good starting place for the board to get a feel like whether or not they're getting the value they want, or to make changes if we moved into a subsequent phase for advertising. And so we've brought this to you in our minds in response to your desire to restart that marketing campaign.
I would interject also. I like the 6-month term because it gives the new guy a chance to get in here, and if he determines that he would like to pursue an RFP, that's probably about the time he would need to do that. But when we did this before, I was put on the agenda of the board every 90 days to come in and review what we'd been doing and get feedback from the board. And even though that would only be, once in the center of this, I would still like to have that opportunity so I can get feedback from you guys, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what people are saying. And if you think there's something you don't like, or you've heard an idea somewhere that you'd like to be implemented, we could discuss that. So I would like for that.
And we think that's appropriate too, that close contact between the board and the board's contractor.
I believe the consensus of the board is we'd like to have updates from, regularly on the progress of what we have out there. So I would be in agreement. This is a voting item, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Have any comments from Mr. McLaughlin right now, or questions to add? I'd like to go ahead and put on the table for a vote for the proposal.
Motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second by Director Dindal. All those in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We look forward to working with you in the next
Me
6
too.
months.
Me too.
Sure.
The half-cent sales tax is important to me, and the mission of the COSA DC is important to me. I think it's great for the community, and I look forward to being a part of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, now we're moving on to item 6, closed session, executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to the requirement that meetings be open under the following sections. A, Section 551.087, to discuss and offer of financial or other incentives to companies with whom the City of San Angelo Development Corporation is conducting economic development negotiations, and which the City of San Angelo Development Corporation seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in San Angelo. B, Section 551.072, Sub 2, consult with the attorney on a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter regarding the replacement economic development agreement with Hirschfield Energy Systems LLC et al. It is now 9:33 and we are in executive session. He is out of executive session. There being no action coming from executive session, we're moving on to line item 7, follow up on administrative issues, announcements, and considerations of future agenda items. Board.
I have an announcement. This will be
Okay.
my last meeting. I'll be resigning from the board. I have let my appointing city councilman know, Harry Thomas. I very much appreciate y'all letting me serve with you, but I have taken a position with Texas Central Partners, who are the developers of the bullet train between Dallas and Houston. And I will be relocating to the Brazos Valley, otherwise known as Bryan College Station, as it will be the one and only stop between the two endpoints. So anyway, I am excited. And as I'm telling Bill, I have a daughter to see through graduation on Saturday, and then we'll be packing up and going. So thank y'all very much. Thanks,
for
staff.
your time. Yes, congratulations.
Thank you for your service.
Any other announcements, board? All right, just
I'll make the motion that we adjourn.
Okay. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
We are now adjourned.